Nelson Franco Jobim. He's a lecturer in journalism and international relations. He joins us now live from Rio de Janeiro. Thanks for joining us. Are you surprised by both Morales' resignation, and can you tell us what do you think was the straw that broke his back?
Well, I'm not really surprised because there was a mounting pressure on the streets, and in the end, after the Organization of American States reports on election frauds, the situation of Morales became very fragile, and the armed forces gave the final push.
Morales' departure from office and perhaps his looming departure to Mexico hasn't really stopped the protests, from what I understand. What do you think will?
Well, the argument of the head of the armed forces and the head of the national police to suggest that Morales resigned was that was the best way to pacify the country, because the situation is very polarized. Actually, Morales is running for a fourth mandate. The Constitution allows only two. Then he asked the Supreme Court and argued that it was a fundamental human right to be candidates, and he got a favorable decision. But after the election, there's allegations of election frauds. He tried to ignore all the rebellion, and on the 30th of October, he accepted this revision of the electoral process by the Organization of American States. And when the results came yesterday, he was under pressure to resign, but we tried to resist. He didn't accept, he didn't want to make any concession. Then yesterday, he accepted to call new elections in the morning and the afternoon after the armed forces declaration. He decided to resign, and it was a collective resignation. Morales, his vice president, the president of the House, the president of the Senate. So it was, they wanted in some sense to create a power vacuum.
Do you think?
And I think they bet on chaos to try to come back.
Do you think Mexico is the right place
Morales supporters?
Do you think Mexico is the right place for Morales to go?
Mexico has a long tradition of not accepting governments born out of coups. So he has a long tradition of giving asylum during the so-called dark years of the 60s and 70s in Latin America, when all countries except Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Venezuela were dictatorships. Many people got asylum in Mexico, so Mexico is honoring a tradition.
What do you think this means for the indigenous communities in Bolivia, where 2/3 are indigenous? He was the first indigenous president there.
Well, the situation is still not clear. The second vice president of the Senate claims that she is the legal authority to take power, and he called a session of parliament for tomorrow. The problem is that the Movement for Socialism, Morales' party, has a majority of 2/3, and if his deputies and senators does not show up, there won't be enough number of congressmen to take the decision of accept the resignation and then indicating a new president for a period of 90 days.
Okay.
Within 90 days, they will have to call new elections. But if the situation cannot be solved by parliament, then probably the military will take power, and then it will be a completely different situation.
Nelson,
I think that
Nelson Franco Jobim.
Well, what do
Nelson Franco Jobim, I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us live from Rio de Janeiro. And